So distributive property, I'll give you kind of an example of what distributive property looks like so you're not like wondering what I'm talking about here. So a distributive property would look like a problem like this. Do you remember what you should do with that? Does that seem familiar? Yeah, go ahead.
You multiply the 2 and negative 4 by 3.
Yeah, so that number on the outside, it's like I'm distributing that to what's inside the parentheses. So that 3 has to go to each of those terms. So we're going to multiply or divide that number. Now, this one's multiplying. I'll show you divide in a little bit. Multiply and divide to all terms inside the parentheses. And I like using arrows to show my terms, or like my distributing. So I distribute this in. So since that 3 is stuck to those parentheses, we assume it's multiplication. So we're multiplying that 3 times the 2x. What's 3 times 2x? 6x. And then 3 times a negative 4? Negative 12. So minus 12. Now don't forget what you guys know about combining like terms. Can I put those two together? No, because they're not like terms. So I stop right there. So that's it. So that's distributive property by itself, which typically isn't so bad. We will combine these two ideas together though. So when we're doing this, we're really going to follow the order of operations. So we want to distribute first, because that's multiplication or division, and then we'll combine like terms. So we have steps in order here. So step 1 is going to be distribute, which is really multiplying or dividing. And then we'll combine like terms. So we'll finish up with a bunch of examples here. So anytime you get a problem that says simplify, you want to follow the order of operations. So order of operations tells me I should multiply or distribute first. Now some of you guys might be going back to order of operations and saying, wait, it told me to do parentheses first. Why don't I subtract a minus 3 first? I have a trick question. Yeah.
You don't know what A is?
You don't know what A is, and they're not like terms. So I can't actually do that math because I don't know what A is, and it's not a like term with the 3. So I kind of have to skip over the parentheses step because I can't do anything inside the parentheses. So now we're ready to distribute. What's being multiplied to the parentheses here?
4.
The 4. So I'm going to distribute 4 in to each of those. So I'm going to distribute that 4 into both terms, but only the terms inside the parentheses. So that A on the outside isn't inside the parentheses, so it's not going to get it. So 4 times A is 4A. Just put that 4 in the front. 4 times a negative 3. 4 times negative 3.
Negative 12.
Negative 12, thank you. And then we just bring down this plus A. Now our next step is to combine like terms, and that's what we were just doing on our board. So what goes together here? Yeah? 4A and then the positive 1A. Don't forget there's really like a 1 there. So 4A and 1A is what? 5A. 5A. And then we'll bring down this minus 12. And then those aren't like terms, so we just stop right there. has two sets of parentheses. So what's being distributed? 3, right? Right here is a 3. But how about the second half? Anyone know what's being distributed? It's a kind of a tricky one. What do you think? Anyone think they know? It's being distributed there. Yeah.
Maybe a -1?
Yeah, it's really like a -1, so it's really like it's going to change the signs of those. So it's like a -1 is being distributed. It's definitely a tough one, so maybe put a little star there to remind you of that. That's tough, that'll come up, but it's definitely is one that trips people up. So this first half, we're going to distribute the 3 in. So 3 times 2x means 6x. 3 times a -1, -3. And then, like we said here, this is really like a -1 being multiplied in, so it's really just going to change these signs. So -1 times 5 is just a -5. -1 times a -6x becomes a positive 6x. So we distributed, that's our first step. Everyone okay with that? Now we're ready to combine like terms. What do you guys want to put together? 6x and 6x, and they're both positive. So 6 plus 6 is 12x. And then these two guys in the middle are alike.
Negative and negative.
Very good. Down 3, down 5 more. We've lost a total of 8. And you can write plus a negative if you prefer. Okay. Now this next one is kind of like, basically it looks like it does not, like one of these things is not like the other. This one doesn't look like it belongs. So example 5, technically this is distributive property. But rather than multiplying, what do you think we're doing here? We're dividing, yeah. All of these are being, we're going to, if I could get the words up, we're going to be dividing all of these by 3. So, just like we distribute by multiplication, we're distributing division. So this one's divide. So there's going to be some problems where rather than using parentheses, they use this big division bar that tells me everything has to be divided by 3. So 12x divided by 3 is 4x. Negative 3y divided by 3, negative 1y. Realizing the board is really light, I'm going to close it right here. It's so nice and bright in here, but it makes my board really hard to see it. Hopefully that helps. I'm supposed to get a new board on Friday, so we'll see if that happens. So yeah, that's better. And then 6, positive 6 divided by 3 is 2, positive 2. And then we look at this, and none of these are like terms, because these two don't have the same variable, so we just get to stop right here. Now, fractions. I told you fractions were going away. But I also told you that they show up throughout our year in here. And I don't want you to freak out every time you see them, because that's kind of why we set those groundwork lessons last class. We're just kind of making sure that when you see a fraction, you kind of have some idea of what to do with it. So what's being distributed in example 6? 6. So the 6 is being multiplied in. So I have to multiply 6 times 1/3. And you can do that with a calculator. It's okay to do that. Otherwise, 6 times 1/3 is actually a pretty nice number. You're taking 1/3 of 6. It's just 2. Because it's really like I'm doing 6 over 1 times 1 over 3. That's just 6 over 3. That's just going to be 2h. So not every fraction problem has to be brutal here. And then 6 times 1? 6. And now this time there's no like terms. That's all we had to do. Okay. So we stop right there. All right, a couple more with fractions to round out our day. One thing I do want to Well, I'll talk about it in a second, about what I want you guys to bring tomorrow. So this one, the number 7 here, kind of a weird one, because the fractions, I think, kind of make things a little bit harder to see. So there's kind of a lot going on here. So what's the coefficient for this A? This first one here. 1. There's like a 1 in front of it. So I'm going to write 1A minus. This next one's weird. What's its coefficient? It looks like A over 4. What's really being multiplied? What's it?
1A over 4, or 1.
So yeah, it's like a 1A over 4, or like a 1/4 A is another way to write that. So 1A over 4 would be fine, or it's the same thing as this. It's just enough. Just trying to get you guys comfortable with seeing those and not thinking you have no idea what to do with it. And then this one is just 3/4 A. So essentially I have these 3 fractions that I have to worry about. What's that? Yeah, so he said that he'd really like to combine these two. They already kind of are alike, so it's kind of like here, like I want to get rid of those. But careful, this is a negative 1/4 here, and a positive 3/4. So it'd be a half, or 2/4, right? So this will be 1A minus a half, or I'm going to write 2/4 just for those of you guys who aren't super comfortable with this. Oh, it's plus, right? Yeah. Plus, sorry, 2/4 A, because it's 3/4 minus 1/4, which would be 2/4. And this is really going to be like a half. So what's 1 and plus a half? 1.5. I'm fine with you guys just writing it that way. Don't like overthink this. Don't think like, oh, I need comments and like if you know what the fraction means, like I'm fine with that. If you wrote that as 3/2 A, it's the same thing. If you're curious. So just kind of not being afraid of fractions. There's not going to be many like that, but I just want you guys not to freak out when you see them. And then our last one here, example 8. I have to distribute this 3/4 in. So that means I have to multiply it. These two are right next to each other, so they work out really nice. Remember multiplying, yep. What's it?
It would come out as 1/4x.
Yeah, it come out as 1/4. And let me show you guys why, in case you can cross cancel. Otherwise, this is 3 over 12x. And then, so she's just saying that's just a 4th x, because you can simplify that. But then the 8 has to get multiplied. So 3 times 8 is 24 over 4. 24 over 4 is, yep, 6. Okay? And then you can't combine those together because they're not like terms. Now, if these last 3 you're like, oh, I was doing fine until these last 3, just know that there's not a ton like this, but I wanted to put some in there just so you didn't see them and freak out. Now, homework is listed here for you guys. Again, watch out. This whole thing is odds, so 3 through 19 is also odds. But also, guys, I'd ask that you bring your notes from the last 3 days to class tomorrow. We're going to do our first notes quiz of the year, and a notes quiz is like an open notes quiz. So bring your notes from the last 3 days. So tomorrow, bring your notes along as well. So I'm going to write that on here. And I think the pages should be online. Did you guys look at? Page 106 is not on there, so I just have the one. Okay, I'll put 106 on there too. Sorry about that.